Good afternoon and welcome to the joint general session of the ISO Board of Governors and WEIM governing body. Please note that all audio connections are muted at this time. With that, I'll turn the conference over to Roger Collinson with the California ISO. Please go ahead.
Thank you and welcome everybody to the joint general session of the ISO Board of Governors and the WEIM governing body. Let's start out with the roll call, and I will start with you, Chair Bhagwat.
Present.
And Governor Borenstein. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I heard.
Present.
Thank you. Member Campbell.
Present.
Member Decker.
Present.
Governor Galitova.
Present.
Vice Chair Gardner.
Present.
Chair Konziolka.
Present.
Vice Chair Leslie.
Present.
Member Prescott.
Present.
And Governor Shorey.
Present.
Thank you. We have a full complement of the governing body and the board and a quorum as well. And for anyone that's wondering, that was in alphabetical order, not random. So at this point, I will turn it over to our chairs for their welcoming remarks. Chair Konziolka.
Thank you, Roger. Well, on behalf of the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governing Body, welcome to everyone for the October 2022 joint meeting of the governing body and the Board of Governors. As work on EDAM continues, we are interested in hearing the progress by the Governor's Review Committee and separately on the design of the EDAM initiative. I'd like to thank CAISO staff for their decision to defer approval of the Resource Sufficiency Evaluation Enhancement Phase 2 initiative. As we heard yesterday at our governing body meeting from CAISO staff, there are design elements that they deemed required further refinement prior to seeking approval. Based on that information communicated, we appreciate their decision to defer this item until December. And lastly, we look forward to addressing the decisional item on Washington State WEIM greenhouse gas enhancements. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Konziolka. Chair Bhagwat.
Welcome everyone to our joint session. I'm very delighted you're here and thank you all for participating. As Chair Konziolka just said, we have a fairly light agenda today, but lots of things, irons in the fire, and a very exciting few months coming up. I look forward to getting input from everybody as we try and sort of reach the finish line on EDAM and other really, really important initiatives. Roger.
Thank you, Chair Bhagwat. Next on our agenda, we have the item it's actually agenda item number 1 for public comment. And this is public comment that is for items not on the agenda. So Roy, if you could check and see if we have any public comment.
If you would like to make a comment, please click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of the Zoom window. You will be asked to unmute when it is your turn. Accept the unmute and state your name and affiliation before stating your comment. If you have only joined on the phone, please press #2 on your telephone keypad. You'll hear a notification when your line is unmuted. At that time, please then state your name and affiliation before stating your comment. Once again, if you'd like to enter the comment queue, please click on that raise hand icon or press #2 on your telephone keypad.
Give a moment.
And it looks like we have no comments at this time.
Thank you, Roy. The next item on the agenda is the decision for the July 20th, 2022 joint general session minutes. And if I could have a motion.
This is John, so moved.
Thank you, John. And second?
Second.
I'm sorry, was that Governor Borenstein? Thank you, Governor Borenstein.
Also Governor Borenstein.
Severin works as well. Your vote, Chair Bhagwat?
Aye.
Governor Borenstein?
Aye.
Member Campbell?
Aye.
Member Decker?
Aye.
Governor Galitova?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gardner?
Aye.
Chair Konziolka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Leslie?
Aye.
Member Prescott?
Aye.
And Governor Shorey?
Aye.
Thank you, board members and governing body members. We have a passed motion. Next item, I will turn it over to our CEO, Elliot Mainzer, for the next segment.
Thank you, Roger, and good afternoon, governors and WEIM governing body members. So for today, this is not going to be my traditional CEO report. I've typically been doing those yesterday at the governing body meeting and tomorrow at the Board of Governors open session. But I wanted today just to take on a topic that's been hanging very heavy on my heart, and I know the hearts of many of us in the Western energy community. I think many of you, if not all, know that our very dear friend Therese Hampton passed away in late September in a just absolutely tragic bicycling accident in her newly adopted state of Utah. I first met Therese back in 2002 and had a chance to work with her very closely in many of her different roles and responsibilities, and always, just from the early day, she was just a tremendous leader and mentor. Most recently, of course, she was the chair of the Governance Review Committee, and somebody I think all of us recognize as just one of the truly great people in the Western energy community. She had a touch and a way about her laugh, her ability to bring people together around really, really difficult issues, and always with such a lovely personal touch. And she just made so many important things happen in the West. It's just today just still hard to believe that she's not with us anymore. I'm still just absolutely devastated and in shock with the loss of Therese. Her legacy and her impact on the West is going to live for many, many years to come. And I wanted to mention both her husband Scott and her daughter Lauren are on listening in today, and we felt it was very important, especially all of us at the ISO and our Board of Governors and the EM governing body, to find a way to memorialize Therese and her memory and her just absolutely unbelievable contributions to Western energy and sustainability. So with that, to discuss how we're going to do that today, I'd like to turn it over to John Prescott, who will talk about how we're going to be honoring Therese, our dear friend and colleague. John?
Yeah, thank you, Elliot. This is indeed difficult. And I want to add my welcome to Scott and Lauren for taking time out of their schedules to listen to what we prepared here in the honor of Therese. And we have a resolution that Angelina is going to read. But, as I thought about this, it is a very sad task to acknowledge a tragic and untimely loss of a dear friend. But I don't think Therese really would have wanted us to be sad. I don't think that was her nature. So instead, let's rejoice in what she gave to all of us. And she did that through her leadership, her passion, anything that I worked on with Therese, she was all on board, full passion. And most importantly, her friendship. And I remember many, many times I would call her, during the grim times, let's call them, to kind of get a pep talk. And she was always there. She was a true dear friend, certainly. So in that spirit, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Governor Glitva, for her comments and the reading of our joint Board of Governors governing body resolution for Therese Hampton. Angelina?
Thank you so much, John. And yes, this is a very, very difficult time for all of us. It's devastating. The loss was sudden, and as Elliot said, it's gut-wrenching, and we miss her dearly. Therese was a fierce, compassionate, thoughtful, and empathetic leader. She was humble, she was sensitive, she was careful to include all viewpoints, and that made her absolutely unique. Her sense of humor and patience ensured the success of the Governing Review Committee at every step, and we all really miss her dearly. The resolution I'm about to read is an effort to formally acknowledge Therese's vast contributions to the energy sector, as well as her legacy to the energy imbalance market in the West. We also want to honor her as our friend and colleague, who we will miss forever. So here is the memorial resolution honoring Therese Hampton. Whereas the ISO Board of Governors and the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governing Body lost a valued individual on September 29 with the passing of Therese Hampton. And whereas Therese was a dedicated and innovative leader of the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governance Review Committee, from 2019 through 2022 in the service of the ISO Board of Governors and the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governing Body. And whereas the REIS provided invaluable service to the Western Energy Imbalance Market with her long-standing service and leadership to the Regional Issues Forum, where she spearheaded numerous impactful initiatives for the region, including the Regional Issue Forum's 2019 Carbon Workshop, and she also served as the chair of the Regional Issues Forum from 2018 through 2019. Whereas the REIS was a gifted leader and active participant in the beneficial transformation of the Western Interconnection power system, and whereas the REIS provided guidance and support for the implementation and continued improvement of the Western Energy Imbalance Market, and whereas the REIS was tireless in her outreach to all participants to ensure the development of robust and thoughtful recommendations, and whereas the REIS was disciplined in managing meetings, yet always made time for everyone's personal perspectives, and whereas the REIS led with humor, humility, and compassion, while ensuring weighty and complex matters were discussed fully and all voices were heard. Whereas the REIS's smile, laugh, and positive attitude enriched the lives of all she touched. Be it resolved, the ISO Board of Governors and the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governing Body members hereby express their gratitude and recognition for Therese Hampton's dedication, service, and significant contributions to the ISO Board of Governors, the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governing Body, and the Western Energy Imbalance Market's participants and stakeholders. Further resolved, the ISO Board of Governors and the Western Energy Imbalance Market Governing Body members hereby express their sincerest condolences to Therese Hampton's husband, Scott Hampton, daughter Lauren, as well as family, friends, and colleagues. And thank you all for helping us draft this resolution, the contributions from the ISO Board of Governors, from the EIM governing body, from the ISO staff, friends, and colleagues were all reflected in this resolution, and we really hope that this pays a lasting tribute to all of the contribution that Therese has made to the energy sector and the way she touched all of our lives. I think at this time, if somebody wants to say something and so Therese and honor her memory, this is, we're going to open the forum.
Thank you, Angelina. I'm just going to start out that, I didn't have the opportunity to work with Therese as much as many of you, but I recall meeting her some years ago as we started a lot of this governance work. And just from the first moment I met Therese, I was just so impressed with just her vibrant personality and her just very, very quick mind, and just what a pleasure it was to work with her in all aspects. And my condolences to her family for sure. Thank you for the beautiful resolution, and let's open it up if there's any other comments. We can start with any other comments with folks in the Zoom call, and then we can seek public.
This is Mark Rothleader. I'll just say that I've been at meetings with her. I've shared events with her, and I've always found her to be very clear in where she was heading and where she wanted to head in terms of the energy sector. And I found her to be a great colleague in driving to that objective. And I'll miss her.
And Angelina, before we go to the phone, I also just wanted to once more just wish Scott and Lauren the very best. There's so many people that have been praying for you and sending you love, and just stay connected and wishing you both the very, very best. Peace.
Roger, this is Rob. I'd like to say a few words myself.
Yes, please.
I think at this point in time, I think we all really would like to be really positive in making this much more of a living memorial and tribute. And I think a lot of us are still struggling with the grief right now, and still struggling with the right words to express our sympathy and empathy and our condolences, because it just doesn't seem like there's really enough that can be said that really gets everything across that individually and collectively we would like to say. And we really miss her. And I can tell you that my experience is like everybody else's in that she made you feel like a friend. She made you feel welcome. And she really brought you in and made you feel like you were the center and really connected with you. She was just so terrific, and it's, as expressed earlier, hard to believe that she's gone, and we don't have her here, and she's not with her family. And so my sincerest condolences, and I hope that we over time can express some more positive messages as we get to the grief.
Thank you. Roy, if you can see if there's any public callers.
If you would like to make a remark on this topic, you can enter the queue by clicking on the raise hand icon in the Zoom window. Or if you are only on the phone, please go ahead and press #2. It looks like we do have one person who would like to make a remark. Kathleen, please go ahead.
Yeah, no, thank you. This is Kathleen Colbert from Vistra. I just want to really thank you all for doing this. It's very kind, touching. It is incredibly hard. I agree. Like, we're still, I think, all working through. I want to express like deep condolences to Teresa's family. Teresa was definitely one of the kindest people I've ever met, and she was so accepting and supportive, and I think so many people felt touched by her in our lives and our career, and I just want to say thank you, and I wanted the family to know that. Thanks.
Thank you. There's no further comments, Roy. We'll appropriately move to the next item.
There are no further comments at this time.
Okay. The next agenda item 4 is the WEIM Governance Review Committee update. And let me turn it over to Stacy Crowley, our Vice President of External Affairs, for the introduction. Stacy?
Roger, could I ask, do we not need to vote on that resolution? Or
I'm sorry. You know, I should have said that. Yes, it's, I think it's acknowledged the joint approval and formal vote is not necessary.
Okay.
We will acknowledge that. Thank you for bringing that up, Jen. I lost my place. Stacey?
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Roger. I'm here to introduce Rebecca Wagner, who will provide a Governance Review Committee update. But I first wanted to also express my sincere condolences to Teresa's family and friends. I too have been blessed to have worked with her for the years that we did work together, and her engagement and leadership on the Governance Review Committee most recently was just so entirely special. Her ability to gain consensus and do all the outreach that was necessary to thread the needle that they're threading, talking about these important issues, was just amazing. So my condolences, and we will really miss her. My dear friend Rebecca Wagner, who was the vice chair of the GRC, graciously offered to be the chair, or the standing chair, to take on Teresa's activity and leadership to complete the work of the Governance Review Committee. When this tragedy happened, Rebecca and I both kind of said to each other that let's get this done for Therese. Therese was so passionate about these issues and so dedicated to finding a good path forward that I know Rebecca will support me in saying that the GRC as a whole, I think, believes that Therese wants this to happen, wants the coordination in the West to be successful. And so they have all stood up and have agreed to continue this work, even though it's been very hard. So with that introduction, and Rebecca, my gratitude to you for taking this on, and I really appreciate it. And I'll turn it over to you, Rebecca.
Thanks, Stacy. Good afternoon, members of the board and the governing body. Thank you for the opportunity to give you an update on the work of the GRC. I was not expecting the emotional response that I was just having. I thought I had worked through it earlier today, but I will persevere with some sniffles and let you guys know what's going on. I'll start with the good news. Therese would be proud of us. The GRC remains fully engaged and committed to delivering you a well-crafted proposal. We continue to refine the joint authority issues, finding balance among differing perspectives, and very thoroughly vetting concerns. I have to assume by now that all of us are suffering from governance fatigue, but you wouldn't know it by the robust and thoughtful discussions, and the dedication from the GRC is impressive. And now for the even better news, which would make Therese very, very happy, is that we are on track. The GRC is putting on the final touches of our revised proposal, which will be issued this Friday. We have scheduled a public session for November 7th. The GRC members are gearing up for outreach efforts to our stakeholders to answer questions and get further feedback and input. And the ISO symposium will provide a great opportunity for us to engage with stakeholders directly, which has definitely been a challenge throughout this entire process, working so remotely. So I look forward to seeing all of you and being able to work with folks to walk through our proposal. We will be asking for written comments due on November 18th. We'll do a quick turnaround so that we can finalize our final draft, which always kills me, the draft final reports, and the naming of such. We'll have that ready for you in early December and be prepared to present it on a briefing in mid-December. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the members of the GRC for their dedication to this process. It has been hard. This last month has been really hard. It's a great group of people, and we're lucky. And I finally want to thank the ISO team, Bert, Dan, Stacy, Holly, especially Holly, who've been a lifesaver for me, and anyone else that I'm missing. Your hard work, diplomacy, and patience is amazing, and the ISO is lucky to have such an outstanding team. So before I melt down any further, I will open it up for questions, maybe a joke or something to snap me out of this. But first, I do want to acknowledge Scott and Lauren. I am so sorry, and I know this is hard, and I just feel like I was lucky to know Therese, and I'm a better person for knowing her. So her reach is far and wide, and I'm just truly deeply sorry for what you're going through. So with that, questions, jokes, redirection.
Thank you, Rebecca, for stepping in Therese's shoes. It was a difficult task, and you stepped up and are sticking with it and sticking with us and making sure that we continue the good work that Therese started and that we do make her proud. And indeed you have, and you've made sure that we have continued in her spirit and with her guidance. And I can hear her laughing right now.
And Rebecca, I'd just like to echo that, our gratitude for your stepping up and continuing the process. And thank you for keeping it on track, and you have our support.
Thank you.
Any comments, questions, jokes for Rebecca? That's the best I had, Rebecca. So.
Roger, this is Stacy. I just want to clarify, Rebecca was talking about publishing the paper. It will be published, I believe, October 31st, Monday. So just in case. Yeah.
Thank you, Stacy.
Mm-hmm.
Any other comments or questions from the board or the governing body or management for that matter?
Roger, this is Rob. Rebecca, I just want to say thank you as well. We appreciate the work of the Governance Review Committee and appreciate the ability to move this forward and bring this to a place for final debate. And we appreciate the work that you're doing and the work of all of the GRC members. So just thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Thank you, Rob. If there's no other comments from the panel, Roy, can you check to see if there are any comments on the phone?
Once again, if you would like to make a comment, please click on the raise hand icon at the bottom of the Zoom window or press #2 on your telephone keypad. Looks like we have no comments at this time.
Thank you, Roy. At this time, let's go to the next agenda item, the decision on the Washington WEIM Greenhouse Gas Enhancements Initiative. And to introduce the topic is our Vice President, Market Policy and Performance, Anna McKenna. Anna?
Thank you, Roger. And good afternoon, Board of Governors and governing body members. Before I proceed, I would like to express my deep condolences to Teresa's family who's online, and my sadness for what has occurred, and my condolences to all of you and the greater community, and my appreciation for her great contributions. This has been an emotional moment today for all of us. Great recognition of her contributions. I didn't want to go without saying that. Well, I don't have a joke for Rebecca, but I do have, and I am excited to be introducing this topic to you and introducing Anya Gilbert, our lead policy developer in market and infrastructure policy. I will note that this is Anya's first time presenting to the Board of Governors and the governing body. Anya's been working very hard on these greenhouse gas issues, both in the context of the Western energy imbalance market as well as in the extended day-ahead market framework that we are currently developing. Anya will be presenting to you management's proposal for changes to our market rules in support of facilitating the Washington State Cap and Investment Program. And with that, I will turn it over to Anya.
All right. Well, thank you, Anna. And good afternoon, Chair Galativa, Chair Kanziolka, governors, and governing body members. As Anna mentioned, a decision is being requested on the Washington Western Energy Imbalance Market Greenhouse Gas Enhancements Initiative to support Washington entities when it comes to Washington State's Cap and Invest program. We can move to the next slide. This includes enhancements to incorporate greenhouse gas costs into applicable Washington State Resources market cost reference levels and facilitate reporting requirements for Western EIM transfers serving Washington State load. As important context for why the CAISO is undertaking this initiative and the phased approach for reference levels, there are two regulatory drivers in place. Washington's Cap and Invest program begins January 1st, 2023, with their first allowance auction occurring in February 2023. Reporting requirements will start for emissions year 2022, with their first report due March 31st, 2023, and will be required on an annual basis thereafter. The proposal incorporates greenhouse gas costs into applicable Washington State Resources market cost reference levels. This pertains to Washington-specific greenhouse gas compliance costs and calculating the reference levels. And I'll note that the reference levels this applies to are for Washington Resources with a compliance obligation, for their commitment costs, which are used to cap bids for startup and for minimum load, and applies to the variable cost option default energy bid used for local market power mitigation. The CAISO is proposing a phased approach for these reference levels to reflect the program evolution and when best available data can be used. At the start of the Cap and Invest program, January 1st, the CAISO will use an estimate from the Department of Ecology's consultant-developed estimate, which is $41 per metric ton. After the allowance auction is held in February, the CAISO will use that allowance price. And finally, once vendors have index prices, the CAISO will use those values, akin to the process used today in California. A second aspect of the proposal, the CAISO plans to facilitate reporting requirements for Western EIM transfers serving Washington state load per Ecology's requirements. To that end, the CAISO will calculate the annual market dispatches based on instructed imbalance energy to support reporting to Ecology. And I'll note that the real-time instructed imbalance energy reflects Western EIM transactions used to serve electricity demand. As far as stakeholder feedback, you've heard that the Washington utilities largely support these changes. We did receive some clarification questions and on the reporting aspect. I do want to note that wheel-throughs will not be included in the reports. And for in-state generation without a compliance obligation, the Washington Department of Ecology may account for this through their own separate greenhouse gas reporting tool. We also received requests for coordination, and the CAISO will continue to coordinate with Ecology on reporting for multi-jurisdictional entities, as well as other topics. With this, we request the ISO Board of Governors and the Western EIM governing body approve management's proposed Washington WEIM greenhouse gas enhancements to incorporate the greenhouse gas costs into applicable Washington state resources, market costs, reference levels, and facilitate reporting requirements for Western EIM transfers serving Washington state load. Thank you.
Thank you, Anya. Next, we have DMM that wanted to comment, and Ryan Kurlinski. Are you on the line, Ryan?
I am. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Bagwat, Chair Kanzielka, governors and governing body members. This is Ryan Kurlinski from the Department of Market Monitoring. Thank you for your time today. I'll be providing a summary of DMM's views on each of the two changes the ISO is proposing for the WEIM to address Washington's Cap and Invest program, which begins January 1st. First, the ISO proposes to include a Washington-specific greenhouse gas adder onto the reference levels used for commitment costs and for mitigated energy bids for resources in the state of Washington. This should help keep the reference levels for these Washington resources close to the costs that they expect to face after the start of the Cap and Invest program. So GMM supports this relatively straightforward adaptation of what is currently done for California resources. Next, the ISO proposes a method for calculating WEIM import transfers for entities in Washington. Any decision the ISO makes on what counts as an import transfer will impact the amount of GHG allowances that load-serving entities in Washington ultimately have to procure from January 1st onward. And up until recently, there was significant ambiguity in Washington State's rules over what would be viewed as import transfers, and also over who would be responsible for procuring allowances for those imports. But with January 1st looming here, the ISO has to have some policy in place for what it will report to Washington entities as being a WEIM import. And GMM thinks that there are bigger risks of inefficient behavior, and in particular, there's bigger risks of decreased WEIM participation from the ISO having no policy than for moving forward at this point with the current proposal for calculating imports. So GMM is not opposed to the ISO's proposal. However, under this proposal, the optimization will not consider at all the emissions costs of resources outside of Washington that the WEIM might dispatch to serve load in Washington. So starting January 1st, the WEIM is likely to redispatch up higher emitting resources outside of Washington to displace lower emitting resources inside of Washington. Department of Ecology's recent September 29th rulemaking, it resolved some of the key ambiguities that we think were preventing the ISO from proposing something similar to its design for California, something where the optimization would account for the emissions costs of out-of-state resources. So we are recommending that the ISO continue working with stakeholders on developing an improved Washington WEIM greenhouse gas attribution approach. So in conclusion, we support the ISO moving forward with both their GHG reference level and their import proposals at this time, but we recommend that they keep working on developing a better design for handling the WEIM import transfers into Washington. So thank you again for your time, and I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ryan. Let me open it up now for comments or questions from the board or the governing body. Rob, it looks like you have your hand raised.
Yes, I do. Thank you. First of all, Anya, thank you for this presentation. I thought the material that you just went over and the cover in the memo were clear and very helpful. But I do have a couple of clarification questions for you. And then I know that you've done work since the last set of comments were submitted. So this may be very straightforward. So one is you did clarify the issue on wheel-throughs, and I'd just like you to confirm, and you said they won't be included in the reporting, that wheel-throughs will not be impacted by this proposal if we approve it. So if you could just comment on that first, and I'll go to the next questions that I have.
Sure. So with regards to the question of will wheel-throughs be included and impact those WEIM entity reports, they would not be included and alter those final reports. Thank you.
Right. The next item I had, and this had you to, and it was commented on, is some definitional issues, and that was the issue of the EIM, anything being deemed EIM as an import. And I know that you were working on that. Is that resolved?
And could you be more specific about EIM and import?
Yeah, I guess in Washington, the Department of Ecology had in their previous language had stated that they deemed anything coming from the energy imbalance market, regardless of source, was an import. And there were some reasonable comments on that not being the case, that they shouldn't be assumed that way. And has that been addressed?
Sure. So Washington's updated regulations address that issue. From a reporting standpoint, we'll still be reporting total transactions, and that reporting issue will be addressed by the Department of Ecology's greenhouse gas reporting tool, rather than the CAISO in its reports.
Okay, excellent. And then the last item I have for you had to do with a comment dealing with, I'll say, the double counting. And it was a fairly reasonable set of comments, and it really, made one wonder on the potential for double counting between California and Washington on a source. And as I understand it in the memo, is that the responsibility for that ultimate accounting deals with both the state of Washington and the state of California, and that the Cal ISO is strictly implementing what they are specifying, and that resolution further needs to be done at the state level within each of the way in which they've done their accounting.
That's right. And so there was a question of should CAISO remove the attributions of Washington resources that are attributed to California from those reports to Washington. And to really facilitate the requirements put forward by the Department of Ecology and the California Air Resources Board, we are reporting total transactions to Washington and total attributions to California, and we'll continue to collaborate with those state agencies to discuss any changes to data reported and some of the implications of data reported.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate those clarification responses. And Ryan, I just wanted to say I appreciate your last remark on the impacts on areas outside and ultimately what needs to be done to further refine things. So I appreciate that. Thank you. That's all I have.
I'm sorry, I was on mute. The follies of video and WebEx and all that. Thank you, Rob. Next is Governor Shorey. Jan, you had comments?
Yes, it really is more of a comment than a question. Thank you for the excellent presentation. I appreciate it. It's really just a big picture sort of concern. When I look at this and I recognize that one of our goals as we move forward with the continued development of EDAM is to widen market exchanges across the West, build working relationships that make it easier for people to do transactions. And hopefully one of the things that comes out of that is expansion of the use of renewable energy across the West. We also have said that we are going to honor each state's energy policies, which would include greenhouse gas policies like this one. In looking at this, though, it does seem to me that we have one set of metrics or reporting requirements now that will be used in California. There's a new and different set of metrics that will be used in Washington in terms of trying to think about how we will measure success going forward. It becomes very complicated when we're not starting from the same place. And it's something that I think I asked Ryan a little bit about this because I am just interested in knowing whether or not the Greenhouse Gas Working Group on EDAM is making any progress on this front, recognizing that this is really something being driven by state regulatory policy. But it is a challenge from my perspective and potentially creates the risk of confusion at best and maybe at worst. You could end up in some scenarios with people not wanting to participate in the broader regional markets if it gets a high enough concern. So thank you, and I appreciate all the work that's been done on this, and I also recognize there is a very short statutory deadline that we need to meet. So I am not saying that I am not supportive of this. I am supportive of it, but I just am a little concerned that as we go down the road, we could end up with 18 or however many policies, all of which require different reports and which then make it very difficult to compare from a big policy perspective how we're doing on achieving our overall goals of economic efficiency and expansion of use of renewable energy. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Governor Shorey. Member Campbell, you have your hand up.
Yes, I'd have a comment, actually similar theme, but maybe different flavor to Governor Shorey. I think one of the really important tasks and responsibilities for a multi-state power market operator is accommodating different state policies. I wanted to recognize the timely work of the ISO staff in this case to work with Washington policymakers on how to support the state's cap and invest program. I imagine many people at the ISO and Washington who have been working together on these policies have never crossed paths before, and new relationships have been built, and those relationships will continue. And so I just wanted to recognize this initiative as a great example of regional cooperation. I think the ISO staff is positioning itself well to be a key kind of enabler of these kind of power market impacting policies across the region. But thanks, Anya, for your work on this and presentation.
Thank you, Andy. I don't see any other hands up from the panelists. So at this point, Roy,
Anita has her hand up.
Oh, that's interesting. I apologize, Anita. I don't know why that's, oh, there it is. Now it was up above. I scrolled the wrong way. So Anita, your hand is raised and you have the floor.
So I am going to reiterate a little bit. So the Washington policies, the Washington statutes were created and recently, and staff at the ISO quickly got on board with seeing what they needed to do to work together with Washington policymakers, which included ecology, the PUC, and I think there's one other organization in there as well for the state of Washington. And that was no small task to jump in there. And it may not be perfectly right. And yes, there's ongoing work that will happen, because even as Washington tries to implement, they're going to find their own things that they have to correct that are going to impact things that we have to correct. But I think we're on the right path here. And it does recognize, and it is an opportunity to identify that every state could come up with different policies. And as a market operator, we're going to have to respond to those different policies. And Jen, I certainly appreciate the point of, then how do you get to the big global, what are we accomplishing? I have pretty good confidence that staff will still be able to provide that information to us, even as we see it parsed out on a state-by-state basis. I think the important thing is recognizing the independence of the states to make their own policy and being able to respond to that and keep our market moving forward. So I want to thank staff for rapidly jumping on this. And again, there might be tweaks, but I think we're headed in the right direction.
Thank you, Anita. If there are no more comments from the panelists, which scrolling both directions, I see none. Roy, can we go to the phone?
All right, once again, if you would like to make a comment, please click on that raise hand icon at the bottom of the Zoom window or press #2 on your telephone keypad. We'll go ahead and go to our first comment. Glenn, please go ahead.
Good afternoon, members of the Board of Governors and the EIM governing body. I'm Glenn Blackman, manager of the Energy Policy Office at the Washington State Department of Commerce. I'm providing comments today on behalf of my agency, as well as the Washington Department of Ecology and the Washington Utilities and Transportation Commission. UTC Commissioner Ann Rendall regrets that she's not able to attend the meeting this afternoon herself. The Departments of Commerce and Ecology and the UTC support the revised proposal for the Washington EIM Greenhouse Gas Enhancements Initiative. We understand this is an interim initiative until further work can be undertaken. This includes work by the California ISO to reflect the rules recently adopted by the Washington Department of Ecology, and work by the Department of Ecology to further clarify the data needed from the California ISO concerning EIM transactions. We express our appreciation for the engagement of CAISO staff with the Washington agencies in addressing this complicated issue, especially given the timing of the ISO needing to reflect Washington requirements in tariff and the Department of Ecology's timelines in working to implement the state's Climate Commitment Act. Our agencies will continue to engage with the CAISO staff, with utilities, and with interested persons in coming up with a resolution for how best to reflect transactions in the Western EIM in the Washington Cap and Invest program. This is an important and time-sensitive matter that has costs and emissions implications for our constituents and our stakeholders, and we appreciate everyone's efforts to resolve it promptly. Thank you for this opportunity to provide comments.
Thank you, Glenn. Is there any response or thoughts on Mr. Blackman's comments from the panel?
Well, this is Elliot. I just want to express my appreciation, and we've really appreciated the collaborative working relationship with the agencies in Washington and understanding that we really are walking an evolutionary path together. So thank you so much, and we're really looking forward to the next steps. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you, Elliot. Any other comments on the phone, Roy?
We have one more comment on the phone. Bill, please go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Good afternoon to the governing board and everyone else. My name is Bill Drumheller with the Washington Department of Ecology. Just following up quickly on Glenn's comments from the three agencies here in Washington. I just want to give a kind of a special call and thanks to Anya, Andrew, Sarah, others. I think it's noted this has had to move very quickly. But yeah, I'm really pleased with the work done to date, recognizing again, as Glenn noted, there's more to do in the future, but very much looking forward to that continued collaboration. So thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other comments on the phone?
Have no further comments at this time.
Okay. And Rob, I think I saw your hand go up, but then it went down. So I'm not sure if you have.
I didn't know if you were going to get more public comments. I was just going to wait until afterwards. I just want to say I really appreciate Mr. Blackman's and Drumheller's comments. They're very helpful, and it's very positive to hear directly from the state of Washington supporting this proposal.
Excellent. Thank you, Rob. I believe with that, we are ready for, unless if there's no other comments, which I see none, that we're ready now for a vote on the motion. So let me go ahead and read the motion. Move that the ISO Board of, I'm sorry? That must have just been some feedback, excuse me. Move that the ISO Board of Governors and WEIM governing body approve the inclusion of greenhouse gas reference levels in bids for entities subject to the Washington State greenhouse gas regulations, and approve the development of reports to support those entities' reporting obligations as described herein. And move that the ISO Board of Governors and WEIM governing body authorize management to make all necessary and appropriate filings with the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission to implement the change proposed in this memorandum, including any filings that implement the overarching initiative policy but contain discrete revisions to incorporate Commission guidance in any initial ruling on the proposed tariff amendment. Governing body and board, may I have a motion, please?
So moved.
I'll second.
Anita and Angelina. Thank you. And I will go ahead and read our vote in alphabetical order. Chair Bhagwat?
Aye.
Governor Borenstein?
Aye.
Member Campbell?
Aye.
Member Decker?
Aye.
Governor Galizova?
Aye.
Vice Chair Gardner?
Aye.
Chair Konziolka?
Aye.
Vice Chair Leslie?
Aye.
Member Prescott?
Aye.
And Governor Shorey?
Aye.
Governors and governing body members, the motion passes. Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is the briefing on Extended Day Ahead Market Initiative, and for that we have our Senior Vice President and Chief Operating Officer, Mark Rothleader. Mark?
Thank you, Roger. And Board of Governors, WEIM governing body members. Today I'm going to give you a briefing. This is a higher level briefing that you will get in December, where you're going to get a more detailed briefing. This is really coming as a result of us coming to the end of the process of developing the Extended Day Ahead market policy. On August 19th, we posted the revised straw proposal, and then we took September to perform additional stakeholder meetings on the revised straw proposal, and also allowed us to provide some additional outreach to individual organizations that wanted to give us additional insights into their perspectives around the Extended Day Ahead market revised straw proposal. Building off that extensive amount of stakeholder response, we are now preparing to complete our draft final proposal that is right now being prepared for posting next Monday. I know in the material it says this Friday. With everything, you have these objectives, and then you find that you need a little bit more time, and that's exactly what we're doing. We're now targeting Monday, the 31st. So if you could go to the next slide, please. So this overall effort of the day ahead market, the extended day ahead market, is really trying to capture the benefits in three areas. The economic benefits, as demonstrated by the Western Energy Imbalance Market, we know it provides real economic value, both to supply, being able to access markets, but also to demand, being able to access more economic supply. And we see that in the Western Energy Market. We expect that the extended day-ahead market to further enhance that by allowing us to gain the benefits of additional unit commitment, optimized use of imbalance reserve, and more optimized use, operational unoptimized use of capacity across the system. On the reliability front, we've certainly seen also the reliability benefits of closer coordination and having energy be able to find where it's needed in real time. As evidence and kind of our experience that we experienced in the September heat event, we can also see how an extended day-ahead market and the coordination and the awareness and the transparency around where all the capacity is, who's got sufficient capacity, who's carrying the imbalance reserve, all that coordination really could further enhance reliability and economics, as we saw in the September events. So we're really looking forward to unlocking those additional benefits. The third component is the environmental benefits. As you just heard, Washington is implementing their cap and invest GHG regulations. California has its GHG regulations, and we expect other states to also implement additional greenhouse gas emission regulations. The extended day-ahead market allows us the ability to further enhance and track and account for greenhouse gas emissions while still respecting different state policies, including different states that have no GHG regulation policies. This is a difficult thing to do, balancing all those interests, but we feel, again, as demonstrated at WEIM, that we can achieve these objectives in a reasonable way and actually realize reduction of greenhouse gas emissions across the footprint. And we believe the extended day-ahead market will further enable us to do that. Next slide, please. So there's several areas that the extended day-ahead market design had to consider. These are just probably the few most significant ones, but not the only ones. The first one is how to deal with day-ahead resource efficiency. Under an extended day-ahead market, all the participating utilities and balancing areas may not be under a common resource adequacy program. And some of them may not be under a resource adequacy program at all. They may be just under their integrated resource planning process. So what we've come up with is a solution that, one, allows a common approach of evaluating are the balancing areas and the entities, load-serving entities, coming into the day-ahead market with sufficient resources to cover their expected demand, plus uncertainties that arise from load and supply variability. So we think we've come up with that, a common approach. And then the second question that really falls into this is, what is the consequences of not meeting that? And I'll get into that in a little bit more detail in my further slides. But that was the one of the main things and first things we had to deal with. The second topic is really, how do you enable and provision transmission to the extended day-ahead market? This is not as easy as it is in the energy imbalance market, where you're kind of the last part of the process. If you back it up to the day ahead, there's still opportunities for bilateral arrangements and sale of transmission. And as a result of that, we have to think more, be more considerate about how the transmission is provisioned in the day-ahead market. And I'll get into, again, additional details about what our proposal is looking like in that area. The third piece of this is, how do we integrate the day-ahead market structure, which is evolving on its own, We have other day-ahead market enhancement initiatives that we're considering, but also how do we integrate an extended day-ahead market into the optimized and efficient commitment of generation while recognizing those other enhancements that are occurring through the day-ahead market enhancement process and other things such as the wheel-through policy and so forth. So that's certainly part of the challenge, and we've been considering that. All these things kind of come down to, at the end of the day, you really can't realize some of those economic and reliability benefits unless one has confidence in the results of the market. And the confidence in the market means that you have confidence in the results of transfers that result from that market result. And so we've come up with a way, and our guiding principle has been you should be able to rely on those transfers, because if you can't rely on those, the receiving balancing area that relies on those really cannot make the decisions to not commit a resource because they will not be able to make those decisions because they'll be uneasy and unsure whether they can rely on those transfers. So the importance of being able to rely on those transfers that come out of that optimization and is very important to everybody. At the same time, we want to make sure that those transfers that result are not putting an undue burden on any balancing area that is participating, and it allows those balancing areas to ensure that supply that they secured for their load is also being managed in a thoughtful way and ensuring that their load is able to be met without and not having transfers impede their ability to serve their load. So we have to look at it from both sides, the receiving side and the sending side. And we'll talk a little bit, I think we'll talk a little bit more about that. The third area, another area is the greenhouse gas accounting. You just heard, again, Anya's presentation on the Washington regulation. We debated this, and I'll get into some more discussion about where we are landing on that. And then again, you saw that these regulations, these implementation of these regulations are an evolutionary process, and we expect that we will continue to evolve the greenhouse gases, building on what we've learned and developed for the Western energy imbalance market, but knowing that further enhancements and opportunities to enhance that will occur. And then lastly, and this is something that we also took up in October. On October 11th, we had a settlements meeting, a deep dive settlements meeting, where we went through how we see settlements playing out at a transactional level. This was requested by the stakeholders that we have that deeper dive discussion, and we had that in October to provide that information. Next slide, please. So I'm just going to give you a little bit more detail about some of the maybe three major items that are in front of us and where we're heading on those topics. So again, resource efficiency is very critical and very important that we come up with a common, strong test that really ensures that and builds that confidence that everybody who is coming into the extended day-ahead market has sufficient resources and capacity to meet their load, uncertainty, and other ancillary service obligations. We also want to make sure that the supply used to demonstrate this resource efficiency is available and offered into the market for optimized use, while not putting, again, an undue burden that people who are providing that supply are losing or putting any kind of load at risk in their area by doing so. There is a diverse pool of supply to optimize and commit across the potential EDAM footprint. And as a result of that, we believe that the transfers across that footprint will also be robust. The amount of pool supply that contributes will be responding to changing system conditions and some of those uncertainties that can arise between day ahead and real time. The big question that we've been grappling with was, what's the appropriate consequences for failing the day-ahead resource efficiency evaluation? while incentivizing sufficient procurement, forward procurement of capacity. This is similar to the discussion that we're having in the Western Energy Imbalance Market Phase 2, is what is the appropriate consequences. And what we are moving to and what we are driving to is a consequence that does not block physical trade from happening for a failure, but rather puts the proper economic, financial incentives for failing if there's failure to pass the sufficiency evaluation. And that also allows the balancing between the appropriate financial consequences, also allows someone a balancing area that is truly short, the opportunity to become sufficient through that process, but it will cost them financially to make up that difference. So what we've developed and what we're putting into the draft final proposal is a tiered consequence charge, a surcharge for shortfalls from being adequate to that resource efficiency evaluation. I won't get into the details of that tiered structure because we will come back to you in December to discuss that in more detail after our final proposal has been posted. But I just want to make sure it's clear that the tiered approach is being responsive to kind of this tension between proper incentives, not allowing people to lean, but also allowing people who are truly insufficient the opportunity to find supply that was voluntarily made available through the extended day-ahead market process. Next slide, please. Challenging issues, but what we've come up with, I'll just say that the challenging issues are how do we maximize transmission available to the EDAM, because we know maximizing transmission to the EDAM basically allows for maximizing the opportunity to get the most benefits, while still respecting those who have rights across the system. We know that in the EDAM, people who have existing rights, whether it be rights under oath or legacy agreements, we will have to honor and respect those rights pursuant to the terms of those agreements and those rights. So this will allow us to harmonize between OAT design and the organized market. It's not too dissimilar to what we've had to do within the ISO footprint when starting up the market. We had to recognize rights. And in doing so, we want to make sure that recognizing those rights doesn't overly constrain the system from being optimized, but also allows people to exercise their rights, again, pursuant to the terms and conditions of the rights. So in that regard, for transmission customers and transmission providers, we've come up with a couple different options or pathways that I'll just briefly say that allows a transmission right customer to, one, use their rights. If they want to use their rights by scheduling in the day ahead, that would be the most easiest way of expressing their use of their rights, and they would have priority use to that transmission because that's what their rights afford them. The second pathway that we established is an opportunity to voluntarily release their rights, and in exchange, they would be receiving effectively transfer revenue for the use of those rights to the extent the transfers between two EDAM balancing areas. The third one, and is maybe the most complicated, or the one that has the most, I guess, comments around it, is pathway 3, and that is if someone doesn't use their rights in the day-ahead market by scheduling them, and they have not released them under pathway 2, what do their rights afford them to allow them to come into the real time and still schedule their rights? And this pathway would allow them to do that in the real time. They would have a higher priority than other economic uses and other real-time self-scheduled uses because they have that right. But then the only question, Len, is left is what's the relative priority if you can't redispatch to accommodate those rights relative to a cleared day-ahead schedule that did clear in the day-ahead. And I think that piece of it is probably the one open question, and it comes down to what is the rights themselves under the terms and conditions of the rights that they have with their transmission provider. And we're seeking guidance from the transmission provider what those rights provide them and give them proper priority relative to those rights. The last piece of the transmission availability was something that we pivoted to relatively early on, and that was moving away from the notion of having a usage charge for transmission revenue, for transmission that was made available that was not already recovered through, I'll call bucket one, which is the bucket one is the transmission that's made available because it's providing the transmission pathway to be resource efficient, or pathway two, that is transmission that's been paid for, but is beyond the transmission necessary for resource efficiency. It's the rest of the transmission that may not have been compensated for already or been sold off, but has historically had a transmission revenue stream coming in because of third-party use or third-party sales. So what we've come up with is, rather than having that as a usage charge, creating a potential for inefficient pancaking of usage charges and hurdles that create friction in the system, we pivoted to coming up with a way of allocating transmission revenue requirements associated with that transmission, that bucket three transmission that is being made made available, and that allows for the most efficient dispatch, but it allows also the prevention of any transmission revenue shifting to native load customers, and allowing that transmission revenue recovery, historical transmission revenue recovery, to be recovered from the other participants in the EDAM process. So we got general agreement on that approach, and I think people like the fact that that approach seems fair and consistent with their, and it kind of insulates them from losing historical transmission revenue streams. Next slide, please. All right, greenhouse gases. We are proposing to build upon, at least initially, the resource-specific approach to GHG accounting that we have in the Western Energy Imbalance Market. There was significant amount of debate and interest in exploring alternative options, including zonal approaches and somewhat other approaches that are hybrid or potentially enhancements to the resource-specific approach. We are adopting some enhancements to further reduce the potential risk of secondary dispatch effects. I'll just say that there is no perfect solution that will perfectly balance all the interests of minimizing greenhouse gases, respecting different states' regulations or no regulations at all, and having a optimized market considering the GHG where you can consider it. I'll just say that the resource-specific approach currently in the Western Energy Imbalance Market is not perfect. I'm not claiming it is, but it does do a good job of allowing us to optimize dispatches and also account for secondary dispatch effects. And I want to be clear that the existing WEIM does do both an accounting for the primary dispatches that are attributed or accounted that are been attributed to serving a load in the GHG area, California at this point, but also tracking and allowing the CARB, in this case, the state regulator, to retire additional allowances through the load serving entities for the unaccounted or the for the secondary dispatch effects through their regulation. So we feel fairly good that the overall accounting of the GHG atmospheric effects of the dispatch are fully accounted for, and we are accounting for the economic and the price effects of the primary dispatch, which is the one that is really serving and being identified as serving load in California or in the CARB California regulation area. The resource-specific approach is currently implemented, like I said, in the Western Energy Imbalance Market, and we are proposing and we'll be describing some further enhancements that help reduce or align with the extended day-ahead market. We are working with state regulators to make sure that this approach aligns with their regulation. And I'm looking for opportunities for if regulations change, there may open up some additional possibilities of further evolving this. But I think for day one of extended day-ahead market, I think we have a solid pathway forward and a commitment from us to continue considering evolutionary approaches that further enhance and grow the GHG approach. Like I said, we commit to continuing to look for opportunities to evolve the approach in conjunction and coordination with state regulators and stakeholders. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is the timeline going forward. As I indicated earlier, our publication of the draft final proposal will actually move to Monday the 31st of October. This is a final proposal in the sense that it brings everything together. It's a draft because we do allow for kind of that one last set of review and comments, but the comments are you in support of it? Are you not in support of it? Not the detail so much of detailed questions. We're not asking the detailed questions. This is effectively our final proposal, and this will allow us to publish the final proposal on December 7th. In parallel, we are also publishing a draft tariff framework on November 7th. Both of these together will be discussed at the board in a briefing, more detailed briefing than we have today, in December 14th. And then we will be bringing to the joint authority of the board and the EIM governing body in the January and February timeframe meeting, the basically request to approve the EDAM policy. After that, we will continue to work with stakeholders to publish tariff. There is amount of coordination that has to take place with any EDAM entity wanting to move forward, because they will also have tariff changes that we'll have to coordinate with, and there will be a stakeholder process around that as well. Once we do that, we will endeavor to make our FERC filing in Q2 of 2023, and then we will continue our implementation activities in fall of 2023 and beyond. In terms of the implementation date, we have been targeting the fall of 2023 with a kind of first onboarding of 2024. However, this needs to be reviewed in conjunction with those interested entities that are moving forward. And we will refine that date of what is an appropriate target for implementation and onboarding in conjunction with those interested entities. So with that, I will open it up to any questions.
Thank you, Mark. Any questions for Mark from the governing body or the Board of Governors?
Should I go ahead?
Absolutely.
Okay, thanks. Mark, on your transmission availability and EDAM slide, which was a couple back from the one that's up on the screen right now, I just wasn't clear looking at that. And so today, I know we're kind of short on time towards the end of the meeting here, but maybe for the next presentation, I'm trying to work through in my own head how this works for customers inside the California Balancing Authority, the ISO Balancing Authority, and how it works for transmission providers and customers outside of the California Balancing Authority. And I wasn't clear from this because your first bullet point says we're trying to harmonize the OAT design with organized market use of transmission, which I think is the heart of it. It's the bilateral market and the decision under OAT for yourself to decide whether or not you have surplus transmission, and then that gets put in versus the balancing authority that we have and the ISO structure where all transmission is going in and is in essence not sold as a separate product. So I'm still not clear in my own mind how this works and how that will be meshed. It's probably a very long answer, so I apologize. I'll just...
It is a bit of a long answer, but let me give you a short answer.
Okay.
Within the California footprint, things don't fundamentally change. We have a methodology of how that transmission gets allocated through the market processes. We have CRRs, congestion revenue rights, to support that. I would say the only interplay with this is that we will have a process for allowing a certain amount of transmission revenue recovery that we get through wheel-throughs or wheeling access charge exports from our system today. We will have a mechanism to recover those historical revenue recovery through the TRR mechanism that we talked about here. In terms of the how the transmission is made available in the outside of the California ISO footprint, that really goes through the details that we need to have a further discussion around, but it goes through the different buckets. Bucket one, through resource efficiency, that transmission that's made available for resource efficiency, the transmission that's above and beyond that but has been paid for already or has already been arranged for, and then the bucket three. I will say that within the balancing areas, external balancing areas, the flow-based capability of that transmission will be made available, but we will respect those rights through priority scheduling of those rights within that footprint. And that's, in the short period, that's what I could say, but we will give you much more detail in the December board meeting on that.
Obviously, one of the things I'm trying to think about is what happens during times of shortage. So you could add that to the equation.
So we will be, in terms of shortage, we will, if it's things like congestion and shortage of transmission, that will be part of the overall process, and we will come up with congestion prices and revenues that we will stream back to the EDAM entities for processing and settling.
So your intent then is to handle this through revenues and not through actual physical reservation of transmission to load in California?
Correct. This is not a physical reservation process. This is more of an allocation process and economic allocation of the transmission that's being made available.
Okay, and across the West, though, the rest of the West, which is not in the structure California has, they will still be doing physical reservations for their native load and only putting into the market the surplus?
Well, you're talking about someone who's in EDAM or someone who's outside of EDAM? Sorry.
In EDAM, but they still have the ability to reserve transmission.
Yeah, they can still reserve. They can still reserve transmission. The way they do that is by self-scheduling it. If they wanted to optimize their transmission, they would basically make the transmission available, and then through the bids have the optimized use of that transmission exercised.
Okay, thanks. This is very complicated, so I got to think it through. Thank you.
I appreciate that, and we will try to decomplicate it as we get into the details in December.
Okay, thank you, Governor Shorey. I believe Rob had your hand up, and now I think it went down. So
I did. Roger, I think my question can wait till later. Mark, that was a heck of a teaser. Now I've got to wait until next week to get to the full version of it, and we'll do so like everybody else. So we'll wait until the next presentation.
Yeah, you'll see the posted paper next week, and then we'll be back with you in December to do a much more deeper dive and have more time to walk through this.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, scrolling up and down on the participant list, I do not see any other hands. And Roy, could you check and see if there's any public comment on the phone or otherwise?
More time, if you would like to make a comment, please go ahead and click on that raise hand icon or press #2 on your telephone keypad. It looks like we have no comments at this time.
Thank you, Roy. Seeing no more comments on the panel, I think this item concludes. Thank you, Mark. Excellent job. And our next item on my list is to adjourn the meeting right about exactly on time, I think with a minute to spare. So thank you, everyone, for your time and your participation. And was there, Elliot, were you about to say something?
I was just going to say thank you to everyone. Appreciate it. Excellent meeting. Thank you all for your support. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah.